throw your hands up and be happy to call on you there. There's microphones here, but as Nick said, you can probably shout from here.
Before we start, please, guys, don't be shy. Ask whatever comes to your mind. It's an intimate group here.
First of all, Nick, how are you? It's your first time in Ireland, I believe, is it?
It is, yeah. It's my first time in Ireland. I'm very excited to be here. Oh, sorry. You heard me before this, right? I almost don't need it. Yeah.
We're streaming as well, so we need the
yeah.
mics.
Yeah, no, it's the first time in Ireland, and one of the reasons why I said yes to this was because I want to see Ireland. That was always on my bucket list. So I'm always iffy about coming to certain conventions, but this one, I was like, oh, I get to go to Ireland. I'm very excited to be here. Very, very excited to be here.
Of course, your first two roles that you started acting, Sex and the City and The Sopranos. Oh, yeah. Not the worst start to have to a career.
Yeah. You're the one who saw this, huh? Yeah. Yeah, this one is, that was early in my career, man. That was, I was actually kind of stumbling into it. I still didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about what acting is, what having an agent means, and any of this stuff. And I remember I was living in New York at the time, and they said there was an open call for Sex and the City and Sopranos. And there's a huge funny story about Sopranos. It was even in the newspaper. But yeah, just, beginner's luck. You just go there. You don't know anything. You just like, okay, let me stand in line and see what happens. And it worked. You're like, okay, go over here, say these lines, and go, okay, bye-bye. And that was it. I was like, all right. I was always doing theater in the beginning, and then afterwards it was like film. So I had to get used to having cameras and people and then doing the scene over and over. That's something, I don't know if you guys know about this, but I started in the theater. So in theater, this is it. So I'm very comfortable in this sort of circumstances. You come over, you do your performances, and you're on. But in film and television, you go in and you do the scene over and over and over, and then they do it from this angle, and then close up, and then not close up, and then a master shot and whatnot. So for somebody, now it's normal for me, obviously, but in the beginning, I'm like, oh, we're doing this again. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, and then, oh, we're going to do it. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, and I was thinking, am I doing something wrong? Am I messing up somehow? Maybe that's why they're doing it. But it turned out to be, a really fun thing. And not knowing what I'm getting, I really didn't know anything about it. Nothing at all. And somebody approached me, he's like, hey, do you have an agent? I'm like, what's an agent? Like, this is how naive I was about the whole thing. I'm like, oh, you need an agent that represents you, and this is how you get called. I was like, oh, so it's not all open calls, and you stand on lines? And so they're like, no.
You did that like two of the biggest shows of all time as your first two roles. Like, this acting thing is...
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, oh, this is not so hard. I don't know why people are bitching about this. Is easy. You just stand in line, you'll get your role, and you'll be in the newspaper, and that's it.
I've actually just rewatched The Sopranos, and you kind of sold yourself a bit short there. I feel like it's a fairly significant role, and you're also mentioned in, I think it's the season 6 as well. Kind of, Chris mentions you become this, you're the link to the, I think it's the Palestinian drug trade. So your character is one of the
Pakistani.
Pakistani, I beg your pardon. Sorry, yeah, bad meant the Palestinians. I apologize. So what was that experience like on the set of that? Like, because you came into it when the show was The Sopranos, so it wasn't as if you came in like something like Spartacus that grew. What was that like, mentally being in something that big?
Again, I was naive. I didn't know the magnitude and how grand this show. I mean, I've known obviously about The Sopranos, but the story of The Sopranos was actually quite unique. How I got The Sopranos. I remember I was dating someone at the time. Again, living in New York. They said there's an open call for The Sopranos. And it was in Jersey. So, and they were like, it's at 9 a.m. You go there and, again, another line I had to go. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, all right. So it was at 9 a.m. And I'm thinking I'm going to be outsmart everybody, right? This is what I was thinking of. So it was 9 a.m. I was like, I'm going to go at 8. So I'm ahead of the line. That's what I was thinking. For The Sopranos at its peak. This is what I was thinking. So I was like, all right. So I go at 8, and as I was driving, there's all this traffic. I mean, there was traffic everywhere, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Why is there so much traffic? So it was the open call was in a high school, kind of like almost a stadium like this, right? But it was a block, and the beginning of the line and the end of the line were meeting. The line were all around the block. I mean, people were camping there. And here I am thinking at 8 a.m., I'm outsmarting everybody. So I go in, and I'm like, what is this? I was like, oh, you got to stand in line. Go to the back of the line. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that. There's no way I'm going the end of the line. But I looked, there was not, it wasn't organized. It wasn't like 2-2 or 3-3, whatever. It was just a bunch of people standing. So I was like, why not just go stand in front of the line? Again, when you're naive in the beginning, you just don't give a shit. So I was like, all right, I stood in line. And they were like, wait, but you have to have a number. Apparently, as soon as you come in, you have to give you a number, and then you take that number, and then you show it to. They had the bouncer also. Yeah. So it's like going to a nightclub. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I was like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I get there. The bouncer goes, "What's your number?" I'm like, "I don't have it." He goes, "What do you mean you don't have it? You got to go to the end of the line." I'm like, "Look, dude, I've been here since 6 a.m. Here's another. My acting started before I even started acting. I'm like, I've been here since 6 a.m. I've been waiting for the lady to give me the number, and she hasn't. So please don't make me go in the end of the line." He's like, "All right, just go in here in the hall." It's like a hall right outside of, let's say this is the main event where it takes place. He's like, "Go in there, fill out a form, you'll get the number, and then you go back in the end of the line." I kid you not, I go in, I'm filling out the stuff. This is serious. The producer bumps into me, the producer of the show bumps into me. He goes, and he was like in a rush. He was like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just filling up the stuff." He's like, "Just go in." I was like, okay. So I go in, and I was the last one seen because they had, I think, 30,000 people showed up for this. Again, me, I'm trying to outsmart everybody going.
But you were in there early.
That's the show. And I was the last person to be seen. And then out of the 30,000, they chose 7 people. And I was one of them. That's why I made the newspaper. So that was, again, the beginner's luck. I was just like, okay.
Oh. Well, beginner's luck and a bit of hustle involved as well.
And to be fair, now you tell me to, I'm like, no fucking way. I'm just standing in line. There's I miss that old me that just like, oh, let's just do it.
Anyway. Fair, I can see your muscles through your sweatshirt, so definitely not somebody I would refuse in a line if I was the bouncer.
No, trust me, the bouncer was way bigger than me. I don't know, I had the guts. I was like, I'm going in, kind.
You mentioned there about your theater backgrounds. You studied under Larry Moss, who was a very prestigious, like Helen Hunt thanked him in her Oscar speech. He trained Leonardo DiCaprio for Wolf of Wall Street, Michael Clark Duncan for The Green Mile. But I believe he has a very unique way of getting into characters, and animal imagery is something that's used in it. And you used a Siamese cat, I believe, in a very interesting way for a role, which
is, I mean, I remember at the time well, I've used so many, what do you call it? So many animal work. I've studied with Larry for a long time, and I still study with him, even though when COVID happened, obviously that stopped a lot of things. But I remember they asked us in theater. I remember one time, what's a role that makes you're uncomfortable with, or something that you're not confident in, or uncomfortable. And the role was a homosexual, like a gay role. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. So they're like, all right, let's try to find an animal that will, based on the character, not just in general like a gay person, it's just this character who happens to be homosexual. So I was like, all right, let's see. So we started doing this research, and based on that, I forgot the name of the character. That's been a while ago. And we found a Siamese cat. So I had to do a whole shit of research about Siamese cat, how they move, how they talk, how they rub onto things. So that was really brilliant. So what happened is I started practicing the Siamese cat. Like for a whole month, I was on my feet and trying to do the whole thing and whatnot. And my voice changed. So when the time came to perform, in my mind, I was doing the Siamese cat. Yeah. But to everyone else, it was like, oh, this guy's gay, or you're not. And not all. I don't want to just talk about his sexuality, just everything else. But it's just portrayed it. So, that was one of Larry's brilliant. I mean, not just Larry. I mean, that's just a method that's there. But Larry is quite amazing at lasering into what you need to work on and what needs to be adjusted or added or something like that.
Because I always just assumed you go to acting school for a while and then you essentially graduate, then you're an actor. But then I was read like he trained DiCaprio for it's like a fighter going into camp. You get very specific. What do you work on that with him together? Does he give you ideas? Do you come in with something fully formed? How does that work?
It's a dance, right? So I come up with ideas. This is who I think the character is, because ultimately you want your imagination to play. I mean, I don't know if anybody here is an actor or aspiring to be an actor or something, but your imagination is your key. The first time you read something, that's gold. Like something will jump out of you. and you have to suspend reality, and you have to suspend what people think of you. You really have to be insane. You really have to be crazy to do this work, and to do this work good. So when I read something like a lot of things pop up in my head. I'm like, oh, this, it's just instant. I don't know where they come from. I mean, you really have to be a little bit crazy to be doing this work. But also, I think you have to be crazy in general to do anything good, really good. You have to, it's a fine line between sanity and insanity that you have to be within where to become something special. I really think, I truly believe that. So I would read something and I would get all these crazy nonsense ideas that don't make sense, and I don't know where they're coming from, but I just allow it to happen. Then, let it go my body, and I'll go to Larry and I'll do my thing, for example, and we'll work on something. And he's like, oh, no, okay, let's take this out, let's keep this in, and we're dancing. And then even sometimes he would recommend something, and I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right to me. So it doesn't necessarily like he's the ultimate, answer. It doesn't have the ultimate answer, but it's a dance that you become, you and your coach somehow. You become like an understanding. Like, I feel this, and they promote something in you that makes it better. And you just feel it. You feel like, oh, this feels right. So yeah.
That leads us on nicely to Asher in Spartacus, which on paper could be seen as he could be, the mustache twirling villain in the background. Something I really enjoyed about your performance is he never came across like he thought he was the bad guy.
No, because he's not. I still believe that he's not.
He does a few things I would probably say.
I truly believe that he's not. I don't think he is. I did not. I absolutely. You're 100% right. I did not approach him that way at all. I did not see him that way at all. As a matter of fact, too, Asher was not written that way. At one point, Asher was written to be actually midway through season 1. He's going to become friends with Spartacus, and he's going to become part of the rebels. And I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. I'm like, I again had ideas of who he is, and as I was reading these scripts, I was like, I don't know, something felt like this is what's happening. I'm like, this is where he is, and this is where he should. And I would fight with the producers and the right. I'm like, I think you should push that narrative. I think you should make him that guy. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, anyway. But finally, I was like, I never saw him that way. I never judge any of my characters. Like, even I did this last show, which is I play Eclipso, this demon, and I didn't see him as the bad guy. These guys have a purpose. I see the purpose of what he's doing. But more so with Asher, I truly didn't believe that he was a bad guy. I thought he was a survivor through and through, and just he was presented with certain circumstances that he had to adjust. Back then, unlike now, you can't say, I disagree. Okay, you disagree, I disagree, and we move on. No, you get killed. And then, so he had to find a way to make things happen. Never saw him as a bad guy.
My mom actually had a good analogy. She said, he's a Sleevian prick, but I really like him.
I had so many things. I had so many stories with Asher. It was interesting because either people love to hate him or hate to love him. So I was like, Asher, that means I'm doing my job right. So I'm okay with either one.
What was that set like? Because that could go kind of one or two ways. You could have it like, because it's a very testosterone-filled show. You could have it like Predator, where everyone's trying to like one-up each other and pretending they're not going to the gym and everyone working out. Or it could become essentially a brotherhood. Which way did it fall on the fence for the Spartacus cast?
I would say season 1 was more of testosterone. Season 1 was beyond testosterone. It was like a bunch of guys. We are wearing men diapers, pretty much. Underwear, and like jumping on each other and rolling and stuff. So it was a lot of testosterone the first season, and it was a clusterfuck in so many ways. It was so like CGIs, and they have the red camera, and they have all this. It's just so many things to take in the same time. It was just crazy. And then you had certain personalities on the show that they wanted to show. Hey, I'm the guy, and I'm like, so it was hard in the beginning. I would say the first 6 episodes of season 1, they were tough. They were like long hours and a lot of we don't know what we're doing and stuff like that. And oh, hey, you stand here. No, guess you stand here. No, so there was a lot of that and a lot of keeping your head down and focusing on your work and kind of shutting down all these crazy noises. It was really tough in the beginning. Season 2 started to calm down and we started to get to know each other and who.
Do the prequel, tragically the star Andy Whitfield passed away. How was that, being on such a show like that, and then like the lead actor passing away? How was the response from yourself personally and from the cast?
It was sad. Obviously, we knew Andy personally. We knew him for the first season. For 9 months, we worked together. So it was surreal, kind of, because he got better and we saw him afterwards, and then all of a sudden we got a news that he passed on. So I was like, it was a very quiet day. I remember on set because he wanted to do we did the prequel for him, obviously, so he can recover. So in season 2, where he was supposed to come back, then he said no, he can't because it came back. So we thought all along that he was getting better, but then it didn't. It was quiet for, I would say, for a couple of weeks on set. All the craziness that we do in the background and whatnot, that got quiet. But this is life. The show must go on, like they say, sadly but truly. Yeah.
As you say, the show went on. You were a retired gladiator essentially in Spartacus. Then you were in your prime in the prequel. What was it like going from, not that you were in bad shape in the first one, but having to go into basically shredded beef in the prequel? How was that transition for you?
Very challenging. Somebody asked me this earlier today, but that was just a choice I made. I was like, because again, I was telling the producer that I think there was something noble about him. I kept on feeling something very noble about him that was taken away. And Stephen Denied, the writer, he thank God he listened, and he was like, and he played on that he was a gladiator and something happened to him and he was actually doing well. So when they came up with a prequel, I was like, I want to change him completely. I want the people to see what I've been fighting for. Like this is, so I made the decision to buzz the hair and to really go work out. And I was actually training with Navy SEALs before we went to gladiator camp. So I was training with these guys. When I say training, I was barely keeping up with them. I'm not a Navy SEAL performer by any means. So their warm-up was my workout. That was it. And I was very glad that I keep up with their warm-up. Like, oh, I made it. And they're like, all right, you rest now. We got to go work out. I'm like, okay. So that was a humbling experience as well, So, but yeah, I just had an idea. I was like, I want to change him. I wanted to. So I think that the audience also felt that. And they kind of sympathized more with him, and because of the prequel, because Crixus did this to him and fucked him up in a way. So I always blame Manu for all of this. So
I can relate to that because when I saw you come in, I said, okay, suck it in. Yeah. You mentioned there Stephen Denied, who was the showrunner. Of course, he done Daredevil as well. He cast you in Pacific Rim, Uprising. Then, what was that like working on one of the biggest films of all time, basically? And then you're kind of looking, I don't know how much of practicality it was in that, and then have to go to, okay, this is a 250-foot robot, what is it as well? Go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually it felt for such a big budget movie, it felt so small.
Spartacus felt way bigger. Because it was an intimate sets. We were like shooting in intimate sets, and yeah, we have to imagine that there's something, but there isn't obviously anything. So it was just the actors and those giant imaginary things, so it felt very small in comparison to, and a couple of times we shot outside and the cameras were on drones, so that was interesting. So we didn't feel like there was cameramen or video village anywhere. We were just a drone that we can barely see capturing every move that we're doing. It felt very small in comparison. Spartacus felt way bigger. Even the Expanse felt way bigger. Pacific Rim felt small. I was like, oh, I thought I'm going to go in and be like, holy shit. No, it just felt so very, very intimate.
I saw a clip, John Boyega running through kind of the green screen and the cardboard, and someone, how was that? He goes, I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, because you know how many times it would be like, all right, the monster is coming. He's looking this way, I'm looking that way. And they're like, no, the monster is here. I'm like, oh, okay. So we had to adjust it, like, so this is the monster. And then we had to ask each other, where are you exactly looking? So we know what we don't look like idiots. You're looking here and I'm looking there. I'm like, oh, So.
It's a cockeyed kaiju they had to do in later then, 'cause you're both looking at two different eye lines.
Sometimes I feel like I should just do it anyway, just to mess with other actors. Just look this way. Oh yeah, the monster's big.
Some poor guy in a computer working 6 months trying to fix this.
We used to do those cranks, by the way, in Spartacus. We had CGI, so we used to do a lot of these cranks, especially when somebody new comes. We were like, oh no, the cliffs are not here, man. The cliffs are over there. And they're like, oh really? I'm like, oh yeah, totally. You gotta worry about that over there. This is nothing. And they were like, oh yeah, okay. And they'll do it. And then the director was like, oh, the cliff's here. And they would look at us. I'm like, I don't know. We were goofing we goofed a lot in Spartacus. So yeah.
You say there about preparation for roles. You were in Star Trek Into Darkness, and you learned Klingon, and then a lot of your scenes were cut. How was that going through all that, learning all this, becoming essentially a big part of the Star Trek universe then?
And it was a substantial role too. Like I had to learn dialogues of Klingon, which is, I don't know if anybody knows Klingon. It's not easy. There's nothing to relate to. There's a lot of I felt like I was sick the whole time. I'm like, all right. So it took us really to practice the lines alone a month and a half. So we did this, and then a big fight scene with the lead guys and all this stuff. It was just like a massive Cumberbatch is this, Chris Pine is here, and I'm beating the shit out of all of them. And well, not Chris Cumberbatch, but yeah, it was amazing. We're doing all the stuff, and I was like, oh my God! And even J.J. Abrams couldn't be more excited. It was one of my favorite directors to work with. He was such an enthusiastic person. He still loved it. Like he was like a little kid. When I come over and say something, he would come jumping. He was like, oh my God, that's so awesome. That's so amazing, Nick. I'm like, okay, let's go back to work. You know what I'm saying? Couldn't believe that I was telling the director, can we go back to work now? So, and that's J.J. Abrams. Man, maybe that's why he cut me off. Come think about it. It's like, this fucker doesn't want to play.
Put you in your place.
That's why, because I was like, oh, let's go back to work. I'm like, before I forget the lines, man, they were hard. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Then I found out, I was like, oh, they took it out. I was like, what?
Do you find out beforehand?
If anybody wants, you never know in Hollywood. You just never know. Yeah.
Do you know beforehand that's happening, or are you bringing somebody on a date? Wait, you see, I'm in the new Star Trek film.
No, I did not know until actually a friend of mine once saw the movie, and she was like, "Which one were you?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" It's the guy that does this, and I started explaining to her all the things. She was like, yeah, and she's like, quiet. I'm like, what? She's like, I don't think you're in it. She was like, or maybe I missed it. She was trying to be nice. She's like, maybe I missed it. I'm like, no, you couldn't have missed it. It's either you saw it or you didn't. So, yeah, no, did not know, dude. Did not know. But, credit to Jay-Z. He cast me in other stuff afterwards. So.
A role, thankfully, you weren't cut out of, which you were fantastic in, was Digger Harkness. And does anyone near know the connection between that and Spartacus? Really? Nobody?
I don't even know where you are.
Spartacus had a co-star called Jai Courtney, who also played Captain Boomerang.
Yes.
I am disgusted with all of you. I'm not going to let. Yeah.
How could you not know this, guys? How could you not know this? I knew it right away.
The finest geek minds in the world.
So disappointing.
What was that like? Because you're probably going to tell me he wasn't the villain, despite the fact he comes in and attacks the Green Arrow.
He was not a villain. And even same with Captain
betrays the Arrow.
even with Captain Boomerang. I never, as I said, that's, if anybody's an actor here, it's the biggest trap that you never want to fall into. You never want to judge your characters, because all of a sudden you put them in a box, and once that happens, forget about imagination, forget about playfulness, which is treasures for an actor. So no, I did not say. I've actually, when they cast me for it, because I was supposed to get something else, that didn't work out. All of a sudden, I get a call from Guggenheim, who was the showrunner, and he was like, "Hey, man," it was a straight offer, right? And I was like, "We have a great role for you," and he was prepping me for that, right? And I was like, "Yes," and he goes, "You ready? You're gonna be playing Captain Boomerang," and I had no idea what he was talking about. I'm like, "Oh, okay," and he's like, "Captain Boomerang." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure, great." I was like, "Guys, just send me the script, and we'll go from there." I hang up the phone and call my buddy, who's a big comic guy. I'm like, "Who's Captain Boomerang?" He's like, "Are you shitting me? Captain, are you playing Captain Boomerang?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." And he's like, "Oh, are you fucking kidding me?" I was like, "Oh shit, I must have underplayed it." So I went and researched the guy, and obviously I saw all these, what he is. He was kind of like, "Hey, Mike," blah blah blah, and he was kind of like cheeky and very like a caricature more than. And I also had a different idea. I was like, can we make him more real, make him more like an actual threat? Luckily, they were open to it. They were like, all right, let's see what you got. So I didn't want to play that stereotype, which I know everybody who wrote or read any comic book is like, we hate you. But I just wanted to, I was like, why not? Let's play with it. So I did it completely different than what the comics like. I made it more scary, more grounded, like somebody that you would actually can deal with in real life. So that was fun, but I didn't know afterwards. Jai did it, and Liam did it actually. in a video, or not a video, in a cartoon. He was the voice of Captain Boomerang. So yeah, there is.
The intro to that character is fantastic. You take on Arsenal, the Green Arrow, and the Flash in your intro. How, and it seems to be you doing a lot of it, is that kind of intimidating? Because not only have these guys got their own shows, there's the tie-in show, there's the other show, there's a TV show, and then the show on top of the show, and then you're coming in as an outsider to that, and you're, oh, by the way, I'm going to beat the Christ out of you, and you.
No, that felt great, actually. Like, let me show you how to do this. You guys have been fucking up for a while. Let me come over here and teach you how it's done. No, it was great. I mean, I'm a very physical guy, so, and at the time I was even doing way more stunts. Like, I did all my stunts, to the fact that I messed up my knee, and I still, like, there's a big part of my knee here is black, because I had this idea when I was fighting them. I was like, when I'm running through, is there any way maybe I can slide on my knees and swipe him out? You're like, yeah, you want to do that? I'm like, yeah. So they put, these kind of cups in here just so you won't mess up your knee. But obviously, as you do more than one take, this one came out, so I kept on, like, just scraping my knee every time. But your adrenaline so high, you're like, oh, I'm going to keep doing it. And then by the time you finish, you're like, motherfucker, what the fuck did I do? No, but that was really good. No, that once I'm on set, I'm not intimidated. I'm barely intimidated by anything. But once I'm on set, I don't see that. Now I find it more challenging. If somebody actually comes up with something, I find that I welcome that, because that will only up my game. I find it harder if I wasn't in an atmosphere that I felt very like, that's not good for me.
I'm worried about your moral compass, saying you don't see him as a baddie, because there is literally a scene where he betrays every superhero, pulls out a gun and says, I'm not a man to be trusted. Doesn't sound like...
Which one was this?
You're on the beach with the guys and they wouldn't give you a gun, and you're like, oh, it's grand, I have one here.
Oh, yeah. Now, again, I find a reason for everything, you know what I'm saying? But, not to get too philosophical, it's just everything is in the eye of the beholder, right? So what I think is right, to someone else, it might be like, you're insane. No, this is what's right. You know what I'm saying? And that's evident, especially nowadays, what people believe and what people don't believe in. So I always approach it from that way. I approach it from, okay, why am I doing this? What's the reason that I'm doing this? And then it's either in the writing, or either I create a story to justify why I'm doing this. I don't think I've ever worked on a show where I'm like, oh, he's just a bad guy. No, I've always found a way. It's like, well, like Eclipso, I was like, well, the world is in a pretty shitty situation, so we need to clean it up to have a better species, so we can live in more harmonious living. So I always find a way to make it. But as far as moral compass, I don't even know about that. So that's still questionable for me.
A character who I think you did play the moral compass absolutely perfect was Cartier in The Expanse, which for me it's Game of Thrones in space. It is an incredible show. Being part, and again, it's something that it's done well, but I feel like that should have been that cultural breakthrough. Working on that, did you go in thinking this is something special? And how disappointed, because it was such a fantastic arc that character had, and it didn't get the recognition it deserved, I feel. It's still done well, but it wasn't Game of Thrones going well.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, because most of CGI, if you see on sci-fi, most of the sci-fi show, they're kind of cheesy if you watch them. Like, when there's a plane or a ship landing, it looks like a toy that just came in, and you're like, oh, fucking A. So it always looks cheesy, and you look, whatever. The storyline is never really good. It's all about the effects. Yeah. This show actually had a really good story, and actually really good actors and brilliant writing. So I was very impressed with it. I didn't know about The Expanse when I got the role. Again, just like Captain Boomerang, I had no clue. The first season was already up. So I remember when they called me, I actually auditioned for the role. And then a month later, they called me. It's like, oh, you got the role. I'm like, what role? They're like, The Expanse. I'm like, what's The Expanse? I had no idea. Again, maybe that's why sometimes some people don't want to work with me. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? I have no clue what I'm doing. So I went into it. I obviously didn't know what's going to happen. And again, the character was supposed to be only for, I think, 5 episodes or something. But me and Sheree, who played Ava Sarala or something, the lady that was protecting. We clicked right away. We were still good friends, and something happened. Every time we were working, we were having fun, and the writers saw this and like, oh, let's do more of this. So we ended up being 2 seasons after that. So that was an absolute fun. The people were very nice. And funny enough, I kept on waiting. I'm like, is he gonna betray somebody in the end? I feel like I'm like, oh, are they gonna do this with the character? Is he gonna be bad in the end? Like Asher or any of the other. I was like, is this what they're going with this? And then finally, he was a kind of a good guy. I'm like, oh, it's so nice to to play like somebody who actually does something that I don't have to justify. In a
It
way.
reminded me of Battlestar Galactica. You were saying about the effects. Like none of the moments you remember in Battlestar Galactica are, oh, when the ship crashes into something. It's all the character moments, which I thought that done really well. And I thought maybe that's the way they could have pushed. Oh, this is the new Battlestar rather than this is, the newest sci-fi thing. I also like the way you just completely forget you audition for stuff. I want to see you, getting more and more escalated. Where you've been cast as Iron Man, you're like, who?
That happens so many times, and I'm very honest about most of these stuff. I'm like, what? Like, especially comic books, and I'm like, even Calypso. I didn't know it was a character. So when I was in Greece actually when I got the role, and I was zooming with the producer, and he was like, so you're gonna be playing Calypso? I'm like, okay. And that was it. He was like, okay, so let me show you the CGI and what the prosthetic, right? I didn't know there was gonna be prosthetics in this. And I remember it was on Zoom. I couldn't fucking see. I didn't have my glasses with me. And I looked. I'm like, oh, that looks all right. I see. I only saw purple. I was like, yeah, I guess they're gonna put some paint. It should be fine. Lo and behold, 5 hours later, I'm in makeup. I'm like, what the fuck did I say yes to? And I didn't even know it was based on a comic book. I did not know it was a comic book character. I had to research again. I was like, okay, sure.
You need an agent or a life coach just following you around with comic books.
I need a lot of help. Sometimes I think I need a lot of help, just in general. My girl goes through a lot. I'm like so many personalities, and I'm like anyway, yeah.
What's that process like getting the prosthetics on? Because we hear stories, 5 hours, 6 hours, and you kind of rub it off. But the thing I remember is for the Grinch, when Jim Carrey, you see the first time he does the makeup test, and he just freaks out and leaves. Yeah. He's pulling the thing apart, and they had to get like Navy SEALs in, or who were interrogators to show you this is how you stand up to interrogation techniques, just to get the prosthetics on. Was the process that bad for you?
It's absolutely. You really have to go to a place, dude. Like you have to be in a very calm Zen place, because it looks like somebody's doing this to you the whole time. You really feel caged, in a way. It's a unique experience. I've done it in Star Trek. It was worse on Star Trek, and I was like, I didn't want to do it again. But in this one, they were very accommodating. So it was pieces. They were putting pieces, so I didn't feel like I was in Star Trek. It was one piece. It was just covering me. In this one, it was pieces, so that was a bit better. But still, when you're on it for hours, you have glue on you. You're completely. It's a hard feeling. If you're claustrophobic, it will mess you up big time. So I can totally understand someone like Jim Carrey saying like no, and there were so many times by the end of the like Star Girl, I just we're like, okay, are we wrapped? Are we done? And I would just rip it off my face, not wait for them, because they're supposed to put oils and take it out so it doesn't mess your skin. I did not give a shit. I was like, just get it off of me. And I would just rip it off, and I was like, and on top of it, I had the costume, which was very restricting. I couldn't eat. I can barely drink when it's a rough experience. If you're claustrophobic, do not do it. Not.
Digging my nails into my legs, like, oh Jesus.
So tough. It's so, and like I would have to tell the director and the actors, please don't think I'm an asshole, because I'm just between takes. I'm just quiet. I just sit down and I'm not talking to anyone. I'm just trying to calm down and just kind of, I don't know. You have to go to a place where you're just calm with it. Otherwise, you will freak out.
Is there ever any moments, because I remember when I saw there was a behind the scenes clip of you going onto the set, and the costume, it kind of looked a bit like Ivan Ooze from Power Rangers, and it didn't look fantastic, but then when they show it on the screen, it's completely different. Like it's lit perfectly, it's shot really well. Yeah. But is there ever any moment when you're putting this on going, oh good God, what have I done?
Oh, every day. Every time they put something on, I'm like, oh, this is stupid. Why the hell are they doing this? It's no, you never think. And obviously, they added the red CGI eyes on me too, so that wasn't on the thing. And then they added this like white stuff, like gel on top, like supposed to make him look, I don't know. It was just like you almost don't want to touch yourself. You're like, ugh. But I guess it worked for the character. I don't know. But yeah, when I see myself, I'm like, this looks horrible. But all right, I guess it's gonna look better. You trust in this? This is a completely different department I don't have to worry about.
And then going from that to doing something like you've done Call of Duty, you've done House of Ashes, the video games, where all of your kind of natural acting tools are taken away from you. How different is that process going from?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Doing video games is a lot of fun. You talk about being a child. I mean, this is exactly being so. They put you in a thing, you're like, oh, go play, kind of. I'm like, all right, that's great. Like it was kind of like theater. Just, I don't know, it was just a lot of fun. And the people you work with, they're absolutely just kind people and just nerds. They're happy to be working. I love that. I was like, this is awesome. Like, and you just play. You have all these dots on you, and we're just making fun of each other, and we're playing and jumping up and down, and they build this wood thing for you. Like, okay, this is the ship, so you're gonna be doing this and that. And I'm like, oh, you feel like a kid when you used to do make believes. That's exactly what it was. It was just a lot of fun and you have to overdo stuff for between you and your avatar. You almost have to. You lose about 20% when it translates from your performance to the avatar. It goes less, right? So you kind of have to overdo it a little bit for it to translate just in the right amount. Which to me, that's heaven, because I am in real life very goofy, very physical, love to play and do all the stuff. So I was like, oh yeah. They were like, oh no, they encourage this. I was like, great. So I was very like crazy on set and adding a lot of stuff, and they were just like, yeah, let's keep that in. So they were open to that too.
Do you play it yourself? Like, do you
no,
turn
I'm
around
not a
and go,
gamer at all. Another thing.
So you don't go to another room and play with yourself then? No.
I'm not a gamer too. Like people were talking about like Anthem or Call of Duty. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I have no idea. I'm like, oh, I've heard of it. I'm like, I have no idea what it is.
We're nearly out of time there. Has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask before we go into our last one? Yeah.
Yeah. It depends. I mean, it's a good question, but it depends really. Like in Anthem, I did a video game called Anthem. I had no idea what I looked like. I just knew he was a big guy. So I was like, all right. So when I auditioned for it, I had this. I played him bigger than life, kind of. So, but then they showed me the picture, and I'm like, oh, that's what I look like. So sometimes it helps you. Like I'm like, oh, okay, and I look at him, and I'm like, or maybe I should do this more. But also sometimes it could work against you because you have this creative ideas and it's working great, and then you'll see something and then you feel like, oh no, maybe I shouldn't. So you might get in your head a little bit and maybe start boxing yourself. So it depends. It depends on each role. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it doesn't. For me, it works either way. I haven't had a situation where I was like, oh shit, no, I'm completely off with this one. I haven't had that in video games anyway. So no, yeah, all depends. Yeah.
We had Magnus Braun here from the Assassin's Creed game last year, and he was telling a story about how it was basically a room with 3 cardboard boxes and a cardboard sword, and he was told there was just 2 guys, and he goes, one of them was smoking, take off your top and just jump over that, and he's kind of, is this like an OnlyFans situation or something? And then the next day they come in and it's him jumping off a waterfall with this like perfectly realized world, and he's like, oh, okay, fair enough, now I'll give it 110 next time. Any other questions there for Nick? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Hiya. How's it going?
Hey, brother.
I was going just on Spartacus. Hello. You can't miss me. You have a couple of great lines in Spartacus. Yeah.
You have what,
like.
sorry?
Hold on.
There you go. There you go. Good man. Good man. Thank you.
How's it going? Yeah. You've got a couple of great lines in Spartacus. It's like, all men die, but it's the time and method that differ. Was that something you did, or was it in the script? And then you've got.
Oh yes, I'm a poet in real life. Yes, I write all my scenes.
But
brother.
you speak
all
so
of it's
well.
me. Everything is the answer said. I told the writer, stop. Let me show you how it's done. You want something wisdom and what? This is me. Just let me.
But you speak so well, so I have to ask. But you also have the other one. It's I am the villain, but I'm not your villain. That's a great line.
Yeah, a lot of people like that. Yeah, a lot of people. No, I wish I could take credit for this. This is Stephen DeKnight and his team. They're and especially with Spartacus because the language is a little bit different. So it was hard for us to ad lib or be, just create our own. It's very hard because it's not everyday language. Yeah. Even the first episode, actually, we had to kind of dumb it down because in the beginning it was very almost Shakespearean, which we were like, I don't think most people can understand this. So they had to take it down. So a room for improvisation, so to speak, was not available.
But it's kind of cool that those lines kind of live on, and you can
Say what?
those lines kind of stick with you when you watch the show and things like that. So it's cool.
Yeah, no, that was this one I get this a lot. Especially the villain one, I get that a lot. So I'm happy that there's a couple of things that people like remember it for. So I'm glad.
Yeah, it was an awesome show. Thanks, dude.
Oh yeah, no worries. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for that, because you just reminded me he has a line where you literally say, I am the villain, but you still don't think you're a villain.
Nah. I still don't. I still, when I look back at it, I'm like, I still don't. Yeah.
I also like that I was waiting for you to take credit for that line, and then next week on Stargirl we'll see a clip, so just falling down an open elevator shaft because the writer's like, I'll show this son of a bitch. He writes the line.
I feel like that's what's happening. I feel like I don't know a lot of these things and they get offended. They're like, oh, okay. Let's kill him.
Write your way to this one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That was...
I was just going to say, any more questions before we finish up? Yeah, go ahead there.
I'm a big fan of The Expanse, and I was just wondering what your favourite scene was to film.
Where was this film?
What was your favourite scene to film of The Expanse?
Oh, in The Expanse.
Yeah.
So many of them. I think, if I can remember correctly, the last episode of season 1, where I got shot, and me and Avasarala and
Bobby Draper.
Yes, thank you. Again, have no clue what's going on, even the shows that I'm in. There was a scene in the end where I get shot, and we were trying to escape and whatnot and all the stuff. We were having a blast, and there was a bit of comedy going on, like, talking about me getting shot and, I'm to bleed slower, so I forget the lines exactly. But that was one of my funnest. But believe it or not, every time me and Sheree, the older actress, every time we were on set, we were having a blast. I mean, she's one of the funnest persons I've ever worked with. I don't know for you guys who haven't seen the show, she's this older lady that has such grace and charm and presence. And she talks like this, and she smokes and talks like this. It's just amazing, just a caricature. And she's got stories every time between sets, between takes. She would sit with us, and then she would tell me stories about what happened to her because she's originally from Iran. She would tell me stories about what happened. Like, oh, Nick, darling, let me tell you what happened. And smoke. And I was like, I'm like listening to me, that was a movie on itself, like I was watching, So every time me and her were on set, we were having a blast. So, but if I have to pick a scene, I would say probably that would be it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
You keep calling her an older lady. She's 36.
She's what?
She's 36.
No.
I'm only joking.
No, I'm like, is she? Don't smoke. If she is, smoking makes you look way older. Don't smoke.
We've time for one more question there, if anyone has one.
Don't be shy. Or be shy.
I'll ask one more then.
Yeah.
I have a podcast called Extravision. Extravision was a video store here, kind of the equivalent of Blockbuster in the States. And the idea behind it is if you had a chance to go into a video shop one more time, what 3 films would you pick?
Let me make sure I get this right. So, like a video shop, like a Blockbuster, is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
So if you could rent 3 more videos, what would you pick?
Are you asking me in a way what's my favorite movie, kind of?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I needed a framing device for the show.
The nostalgia of going to a movie show. Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. One of my all-time favorite movie, if I have to pick one movie, I have a lot of them, but if I have to pick one movie to watch, I would say Shawshank Redemption. That would be my I have so many that I can say these are my top movies, but if it comes down to one movie only, Shawshank Redemption through and through. It was just a beautiful movie. Almost 3 hours of just pure dialogue, and it passes by like this. Where now you know, everybody does 3-hour movies, and you're like, oh, can you just finish already? Where this one, you just seen just beautiful story and human story, you know, just two people, two friends connecting. Because I think ultimately in every movie or every TV show, it's all about the human connection, I believe anyway. It's how we relate to one another. So it's all about connection, just like in life, you know, it's all about connection and a relationship to something, whether it's objects, whether it's people, whether it's places, it's our relationship to it and its relationship and how it makes us feel. So that movie encompasses that. That movie just, it's the absolute idea of that I absolutely love. And I still watch it and I'm like, I still get like sad. And even though I know what's happening in the end and I get that good energy, like they meet at the beach in the end. I don't know if I'm ruining it to someone, too bad. That movie's been out for over 20 years, so, you know. But it's amazing. Yeah, I love that.
I have a thing though, because he never gets found innocent. So technically he's still a murderer on the run.
Yeah, but we know he's not, right? Yeah, we know he's not. So it's kind of, this is how I felt. See, this is how I felt as this character, because all along he's like, I'm innocent. Where everybody's like, yeah, sure you are. This is how I felt about doing Asher or all this. I'm like, no. And everybody would tell me, no, you are. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm innocent. I'm not. This is not. No, you're the one who was messing up. And I actually can give you examples how it's actually other people's fault. I can actually go there. I'm like, it's right here. But that just remains my opinion.
Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. Nick is on
No
the
worries, no
auditorium
worries,
floor. If you want to come down and argue, I wouldn't get too close though, because I would not trust you as far as I can throw you out of this. Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
for
Thank you for your time,
Ladies and
everybody.
gentlemen,
Thank you so
Nick
much. I
Tarabay.
appreciate it. Thank you.